Over time, digital assets and cryptocurrencies will become a standalone asset class, with a lot of it being held by financial institutions.
I think like 2 years ago is 2017, and that's when like the market just exploded, right? And the Koreans are very sensitive towards about like new hypes and new trends.
So I think the idea that you could use this proof of work to mine coins was arrived at quite early. Satoshi managed to solve some of the lost problems and implement it in a very distributed way.
I think the real question is, will there be a blockchain-based WeChat replacement? Will there be something that integrates messaging and payments with an open platform for dApps that shreds metadata?
I think we had a lot of smart people, a good amount of technical people. I talked to a few people building dApps and a few node operators. So I think people in Korea are generally very forward-looking.
I know they are studying hard to understand the market and the blockchain technology. And the big difference between last year and this year is they just announced that Busan, the second largest city here in Korea, as a experimental city. We call that like a deregulation blockchain special zone.
Hi guys, this is Wiggle. Welcome to Tempo Inside Episode 2. We are here at Taoyuan Airport, about to catch a flight to Seoul, attend D.FINE conference, the main event of Korea Blockchain Week 2019. This week is definitely one of the major weeks in Korea's crypto industry. Why is that so? Let's take a look and find it out. D.FINE conference. People with different specializations from all over the globe have gathered in Seoul, trying to shape the future of blockchain technology. At the first glance of D.FINE speaker list, I saw Adam Back, the UK cryptographer who invented the concept of proof of work. I am pretty sure this is his first time to Korea, a Bitcoin prevalent country.
So I think the idea that you could use this proof of work to mine coins was arrived at quite early. Like in 1998, already some sketch of a system involving smart contracts and Byzantine generals, consensus protocols. So lots of the building blocks, but not quite automated. So I think Satoshi managed to solve some of the lost problems and implement it in a very distributed way.
Do you think Bitcoin is like digital cash or digital gold? And another question is, do you think the Bitcoin itself need to be changed?
So I think Bitcoin has, it depends who you ask. So I think Nick Szabo was more interested in making a gold related because he saw gold as a harder form of money. And I think other people were interested in electronic cash. And then I started from thinking it would be very cool to have electronic cash for privacy and have immediately final, so like a cash transaction that can't be undone. So Bitcoin ends up providing both effectively. And so one of the trade-offs is if it becomes very popular, then it's difficult to scale and provide the same security assurances. Like you can scale it by weakening the security assurances, but then if the people that are buying it want security, then they will protest if you try to make it less secure. And so I think Lightning is an interesting development because that shows that we can have more scalability while still having security for storage and like slightly less security for smaller payments. But Lightning also makes the smaller payments better. It makes them faster, very immediate, and immediately final, a little bit more private and much cheaper and more scalable. It's a nice organization because Bitcoin as the base layer provides the security guarantees and is able to provide very strong security because it's very decentralized. And then the layers above it can make different trade-offs for different use cases.
It's not my first time hearing from the key influential in this industry talking about Lightning Network will probably be the future of payment. But right now we see like Lightning got a few problems like the security issues. So How do you think about this issue?
Yeah, so the security issue was interesting, and it turned out that it was a bug in the specification, actually. So there was an open specification that was worked on by all the major implementations. There are multiple implementations of Lightning from different companies and independent developers. And so they all repeated the missing feature in the specification. So it's kind of a specification error that indirectly caused the implementation error. But I think, it's overall the design is secure, and you have to bear in mind that Bitcoin itself had bugs in the early days and Lightning is much younger. So hopefully this is, they've fixed this particular bug now and deployed it before releasing the details. So as far as they know, nobody was affected, like nobody lost money, but there was a risk for a period when this check was missing from the code.
Speaking of cryptography, you can't miss the pioneer of this field, David Zhang, also known as the creator of eCash. He's disappointed in current blockchain development.
I think the real question is, will there be a blockchain-based WeChat replacement? Will there be something that integrates messaging and payments with an open platform for dApps that shreds metadata? So will there be a way for people to do what everyone in the internet and smartphone space knows is the killer app, which is that kind of a platform, but with blockchain inside, so that it's not spying on you and it's not able to steal your data and manipulate political processes and so forth. That's the real question. And that's what I think the community, we all have to work towards, trying to create that killer app with blockchain inside.
If you want to score it from 0 to 10, if 0 is the moment that Satoshi published his white paper, and 10 is the blockchain is fully adopted by a mainstream, where are we now?
I hope we're around 5, but yeah, it could be. I mean, it really depends. Can we build the killer app based on blockchain? Because I think the public is now ready to switch over, given the opportunity to get the same kind of experience and features, but knowing that it's decentralized and the metadata is being destroyed instead of being secretly stored. I think it's a no-brainer. People will move over, and there's a kind of network effect, and it'll snowball, and it'll change, just like social media has changed at least a half a dozen times in the past, right? It always seems like we're stuck here, but then the next thing you know, there's something that people want, and right now there's so much public awareness of the dangers and the betrayal of the public's interest by these big companies that I think we're ripe to move over to something better. We just need to build it. That's what I'm focused on.
Another key factor for blockchain to go mainstream is the way to bridge real data to smart contract, which is Oracle.
I know you had a meetup last night in Seoul. How's the vibe there?
Yeah, I think it's positive. I think we had a lot of smart people, a good amount of technical people, some node operators. So we have a few node operators, good companies like Stake with us here in Korea. So they helped organize the meetup together with us. I talked to a few people building dApps and a few node operators. So I think people in Korea are generally very forward-looking. Generally speaking, I think Korean people are very educated and very polite.
You established Chainlink at the middle or in the beginning of 2017. At that period of time, it's like ICO crazy time. Most people in this industry focus on some crazy dreams at that time, but you emphasize Oracle as your topic. So I'm wondering what's the story behind Chainlink?
Well, I mean, the story is that we've been building smart contracts for about 6 years. And when we started building smart contracts, our definition of a smart contract was actually not just on-chain. Our definition of a smart contract was that it was an extremely reliable form of digital agreement that was smart enough to know things. So it was smart enough to know that an event occurred so that you could automate a contract. But if you think about automating a contract, what you're really doing is you're putting a lot of value in the hands of another system that isn't controlled by humans. And so if you're going to put a lot of value in the control of an automated system, you're going to put it in the control of the system that's the most reliable. So we approached smart contracts about 6 years ago from the point of view of what is the best possible form of automation. Well, the best possible form of automation is the one that's the most reliable, because that's the form that's going to be relied upon to trigger the most value. And our initial, a part of how this all evolved was that when we started building smart contracts weren't about tokens. The idea of smart contracts was more general. It was these contracts that could be used for all kinds of categories of activity. And we built an entire full stack solution that enabled contracts with oracles and the contract layer and payments. They were able to pay out in Bitcoin and all these kinds of things before a lot of the platforms that exist today were even built. I think the reality is our point of view on these contracts has always been that they really should be about all these classes of activity, like financial products, insurance, trade finance, all these other categories that aren't just about ownership. Ownership is just like really one part of a contract or one smaller subset of contracts. We've just always really been working on events-based contracts is the reality. We haven't spent almost any time working on any kind of token-based contracts, because the contracts it's just what we were interested in. We were interested in these contracts that could reinvent the financial services industry or the insurance industry or the trade finance industry, because those industries for us were really about these more useful complex agreements.
Last year, a well-known analyst Tom Lee told us that Wall Street seems to be more familiar with crypto than our imagination. Will crypto be dominated by these old players in the upcoming future?
I think when you look at investment classes, whether it's stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, art, they're all very widely held by institutions, if not controlled by institutions. And I think over time, digital assets and cryptocurrencies will become a standalone asset class, with a lot of it being held by financial institutions. The biggest challenge right now is the regulatory acceptance of cryptocurrencies is not great. I think Korea's been very tough on cryptocurrency regulation in the past 18 months. Japan's gotten stricter, and I think in the US, even though the SEC has done some somewhat more benign things, such as what they just did with EOS, which I think is a relatively crypto-friendly action. I think the White House is clearly stated they're not a fan of Bitcoin.
Let's talk about the Bitcoin derivatives. It seems like CME's product is more popular than BAKKT. Is it true, or what's your opinion?
Well, the CME is a cash-settled futures product. Actually, you can do physical settle, but most people are preferring cash settled. And it's structured like a traditional futures contract with forward expirations. That makes it appealing for traditional futures traders to use it because it's simply traded the way they trade oil and gold. Backed is physically delivered Bitcoin, one-day contracts. I think it's actually a good way for someone to start to physically accumulate Bitcoin, because you can use Backed, the custodian, to actually store your Bitcoin there. So you don't actually have to take the private keys and hold the Bitcoin. But it's early days. I think Backed is important because it's diversifying the infrastructure available. Just like when Fidelity launches its suite of digital services, it's going to increase the diversity. And once there's enough diversity, it creates an attractive way for financial institutions to start trading Bitcoin, because they like to trade across markets to do some stat arb. And in the meantime, the more pathways there are, the more comfortable regulators become.
Due to the excessively obsession and craziness of speculation during the past 2 years, Korean government has issued strict regulations to restrict crypto's development.
Korea is one of the most craziest country enthusiasts about the crypto and blockchain. So what about the government's attitude comparing to last year, this year?
Their main logic is the same: no to crypto, yes to blockchain. But It's just they are still learning stage. So they are learning many. I mean, I know they are studying hard to understand the market and the blockchain technology. And the big difference between last year and this year is they just announced that Busan, the second largest city here in Korea, as a
Experimental?
experimental city. We call that like a deregulation blockchain special zone. So that's like a one big step the government made. And then probably, hopefully, they allow us to do many things in blockchain field.
So they are open-minded right now.
Yeah, more than last year, yes.
More than last
year. Yeah. But yeah, I think they are slow, but I totally understand why they are slow.
If you want to talk about the development trend of the blockchain industry in Korea as a whole, an influential community leader can definitely satisfy the comprehensive analysis of what you need.
Hi, Blog Tempo fans. My name is Erica Kang. I'm the CEO and founder of Crypto Seoul, which is a major blockchain community building team based in South Korea.
You made a lot of efforts on building community and educating people about what crypto and how blockchain works, right? Does the people's awareness of blockchain increase, or?
I think like 2 years ago is 2017, and that's when like the market just exploded, right? And the Koreans are very sensitive towards about like new hypes and new trends. And when that price went up, everyone was curious about blockchain. Everyone, like Ethereum and Bitcoin was the top, like hot topic of everyone. So everyone in Starbucks, you can go there and people are talking about investment.
Actually, I saw the YouTuber. He came across the street and asked the pedestrian about, do you know crypto? Do you know Bitcoin? And almost everyone said, yeah, I bought it.
Yeah, it's on the news everywhere, the mainstream news. And so, I mean, that's when it just all exploded and people started to really have interest in it. And they asked me about questions like, is it really safe and all that things. And so I think that was the high peak of interest, to be honest. And then it kind of shrunk down because the market was shrinking. And you know how when market shrinks, people lose interest. I mean, it's a natural thing. And lose faith. Yeah, it's like, oh, is it really a hype? Is it really fake? Whatever, scam. So I think that's when it kind of like dropped down. And now it's still kind of stable. I mean, I don't think people know about Bitcoin, but they don't really have interest in investing in Bitcoin right now, in general. And so only the ones that are in it for the longer term, that are really like strong believers, they really keep track of all the crypto trends. But the ordinary like general public, not so much. So I think it kind of went backwards right now. The past 2, it's kind of sad.
What about the government?
The government. So you know how when the Korean government banned the ICOs publicly, they were like very strong against it. And then since then, I think the public was outraged by the response, and they were like, "Oh, it shouldn't be too harsh like that." So the government kind of retreated back, actually, and they kind of took their words back, and they tried to make amends with what they have caused, because they caused a huge dump in the market. But since then, I think the government has been a little gray in any of the response, and they have not been positive nor negative. So it's been kind of like nothing, no comment. Yeah, because they're kind of afraid what they will say will affect the market. If they say something positive, then it'll be like, oh, to the moon, right? So, I mean, I really care about like connecting the East and West, and I think there's still a huge gap in many ways. And like understanding like good projects of Asia, good projects in the West, and connecting those two even. And my mission is to literally make a good ground, balanced ground for people to come from different like regions and to actually interact and learn from each other. That's why I host hackathons in Seoul, because you don't really see a lot of good hackathons in Seoul, to be honest. I think there's more in Berlin or San Francisco. But if you kind of bring the people to Korea or to Asian regions, then I think they'll have more interest in just like the building environment, not just the retail investor market. Not that I'm against retail investor, whole community, but I think I care a lot about building and trying to make mass adoption like happen at some point, and just make creative ideas happen.
Tempo Inside, a brand new Block Tempo TV show that will take you to an in-depth exploration in crypto space. During the 2-day conference, we collected views from experts in specific fields, trying to outline the current state of the blockchain industry and predicting the future trends. If you are also interested in our show, or want to share any thoughts about this vibrant crypto industry, please comment down below. Tempo Insight. See you next time.